let's say that. So this session is called grasping. When he touched on this a little bit towards the end, we were talking about how we have a tendency to grasp for control in our lives. So we're going to dig in a little more into that. So my last semester of college, my life started to fall apart, or so it seemed. My laptop would not work. It would just shut down randomly, or even worse, like when I turned it on, it would light up for a moment and then it would shut down. So I couldn't do anything. And your laptop is your life in college. You know, you're sending emails, pretty much all the work is posted online. If you're typing a paper, that's on your computer. But, you know, I had my phone, I could use my phone, except my screen had just cracked. So I could use it, but the shuffle button was part of the crack, so I was moving a lot slower. And on top of all this, my car was malfunctioning, so I couldn't really drive anywhere. Now, in the end, like all of that got resolved, things got fixed or replaced, but it was kind of a wake-up call how much trust I had put in those objects, and when they went haywire, how much control it had taken out of my life. And in reality, or like most of us, I don't like giving up control, because let's be honest, we want things to be the way we want. We want it our way. And we rely on a lot of things to make sure we have that control. You know, we think if I have, that thing or this thing, then I'll have control over my life and things will be dandy. So maybe it's your intelligence if you're more academic, maybe it's an athletic skill, maybe it's a talent or some other skill. You know, especially today with technology, phones and laptops, reliable machines, like it makes it easier to think that we can organize and control our life, but not really. And we're not really in control. So like the takeaway from my story is not, get a more reliable car. I was driving a Toyota Corolla, which is one of the most reliable cars in the world, and it still malfunctioned. Things will fall apart in spite of our best efforts. And I don't want to bash having control stability, like that is generally good for life, but it becomes bad when we make that a good in and of itself, and when, especially a good that we put over God. In our defense, this is not original to us. When Adam and Eve were in the Garden of Eden, they literally had everything they needed. They had food and water. There's nothing to suggest they were sick or that they needed shelter. So it's not even like they had problems that God wasn't solving for them. But the devil still convinced them that, that was not good enough, and that if they were just in more control of their lives, they'd be better off. And when that happened, trust for our Creator died in our hearts, and that's kind of spiritually passed on through us even now. And in reality, like we have everything we need as well. But like Adam and Eve, that doesn't stop us from thinking the grass is greener. Conversely, though, in theme with the retreat, we're called to have a childlike faith. Now, what does that mean? It means trusting God the way a small child trusts its parent, without a second thought, with complete trust, with almost reckless abandon. Now, especially as we get older, that gets a lot harder, because for the most part, our parents know what we're doing, but not always. They're still human. They still make mistakes. Some of us don't have, like when you said, some of us don't have great relationships with our parents or any relationship with our parents. And so that makes it hard to think, we can trust God. But we can, because he is a good, as we just saying, he's a good father, and is completely worthy of our trust. So to give an idea of what I'm talking about, a few months ago I was at a friend's house, and they were cooking or cleaning or something like that, and I was watching their 1-year-old, and he starts climbing up the stairs. He's barely walking, so he doesn't have great balance yet. He can stand on his own 2 feet, but he's holding on to stuff. And he's just going up slowly, one stair at a time. He'll like climb up, kind of fall back down, but then he'll get it the next time. And throughout all this, I'm like sitting next to him on the stairs with at least one arm out, to make sure I can catch him at any moment. Again, he doesn't have really any balance yet, so he could topple back at any moment and get hurt. Now, he's completely oblivious to any kind of danger that's involved with this. He's just excited to make it to the next step. And he knows I'm there. He looks at me and he smiles when he gets to the next step, but he doesn't realize what I'm doing. And, at his brain power level right now, he has no concept of what's going on. And that should be our goal. Like when we traverse all those stairs in our life, we should be fully confident that God will be there to catch us when we fall, even if we don't see exactly how he's there or how he would catch us. That doesn't mean we're not going to slip. That doesn't mean we're we're not going to fall, but it does mean that God is always there waiting to catch us. And it takes a lot of effort to get there. Like, I'm 30 years in and I'm still not trusting God perfectly. Like, I still make plans. I made plans like a year and a half out before this one test to make sure things were my life so that I could do it and pass it. I did pass it, thankfully. But it's a lot of work in prayer, about calling on the Holy Spirit to help me surrender my control to Him. And it involves surrendering the small things first, and then we work towards the bigger and bigger things. And it helps also when you meet people who do surrender more of their lives, such as, there's one missionary in particular who lived out of her car at night, and she just travels around the country talking to people. And that, I can't imagine doing that. Maybe one day, but I'm not there yet. And so while we are giving up our control, one, we really didn't have that control to begin with, but two, it is freeing. Because we're exchanging it for a peace of mind. That doesn't mean I don't plan my future, but I'm living the big existential questions to God. And God's grace is always there showing us the path He is offering, but we still need to accept it. We are perfectly free to reject whatever God puts in front of us, and He'll respect that decision. But it is like trying to swim up a river. You might make some progress, but it's going to be very rough. And it's just going to leave you exhausted and probably bitter. I've had plans over the years, some worked out, some didn't, whether it's a certain job, a certain relationship, a certain achievement. And every single time, looking back, like, God's plan was better. It may have taken me several years to realize that, but it was always better. It helps to remember that our goal in this life is not having this specific job or this specific career, or even being in a specific relationship with a certain person. It's about getting to heaven. And none of those specific things, it's not contingent on any of those exact things. God will always have a plan to get you to heaven. I like to think of it like one of those bank heist films where you start with a plan, something goes awry, and so there's a new plan. So at this point, maybe I'm on plan J, but it's still a good plan because God made it. It's still better than anything I came up with, and it'll still work. And so, obviously, that's not to say falling into sin isn't bad. And we still have to eat the consequences of it, and it's something to build on, but it's not irreversible. That's literally why we're going to have a priest here in a little bit for you to hear your confession. So ultimately, it's freeing to know that God has a way. If we're struggling with a certain sin, it can be overwhelming to think about it. How do I not do this for a week or a month or a year or the rest of my life? But we need to remember that God will always give us a way with His help to do it. We just have to focus on the moments. And that's kind of, for your immediate, that's the main thing I want you to take away is bringing God into the conversation, not relegating Him to the back seat. Make Him a part of your journey, of your growth. And so instead of grasping on to our plans, we need to be grasping on to Jesus so that He can lead us where He wants us to go. Thanks.